So at this time, it is my turn to attempt to tell you a little bit about what is on my little mind today. All right. I have often said that when the Torah repeats something, it's important. Otherwise, it wouldn't repeat it. Words, phrases, sentences, it does repeat certain things. The Torah itself, I'm not talking about the whole Tanakh, just the Torah, the five books of Moses. The Torah uses words very sparingly and very deliberately. So today in Bamidbar chapter 27, it talks about the incident of the daughters of Zelophehad, which I was telling you about before this. But the man that the Midrash says was stoned to death for disgracing Shabbat was also mentioned. It's interesting. The Torah reading is named after Pinchas, but they don't have anything to do with Pinchas, these parts. So it's an interesting thing that they would put it in this particular sidra, that it would be here, but it is. But these women are of major significance, even more so probably than it's true, than this man that was stoned. Because their story is repeated 9 chapters later. Again, tells their story 9 chapters later. And it's told in the egalitarian way. It's kind of an interesting thing because the Torah positions women in a egalitarian way, except there are certain things that women are singled out for not because they can have babies. They can, of course, that's very important. Men can't, but because they're trustworthy, much more trustworthy than the men. They could be counted upon. So that's repeated. The women have an equal right to have things left to them as men do. So what should we learn from the telling of these daughters in an egalitarian way? What should we learn from this? First of all, Torah positions women, even more importantly, the repetition of the story teaches us that women are just as responsible to pass Torah, lador vador, from generation to generation, from parent to child, from teacher to student, as are men. Shows they're just as important. But I don't buy it. I think they're more important. Why? Because of what I told you before. What I said is women are the ones responsible to teach children in the home, not the men. Because women are so important, Devorah, or Deborah, was accepted as one of the very first judges in Israel. Does a judge of Israel have to be a man? Deborah proves otherwise. No. Talmud Bava Kama, the Talmud, tells us how Bruria disagreed with her father, the great Rabbi Hanina, and in Sefer HaChinuch, the great rabbinic scholar's daughter is described as a learned woman and declares that just as all the learned men are fit to render halacha, Jewish law, so are all learned Jewish women. So it's right in the Tanakh, right? I'm sorry, right in the Talmud. Women are just as valid to Pashkin and Shaila to answer a question than the men are, as long as they're learned. So of course, for many years, women were not allowed to learn, but that wasn't the Jewish reason. That was society's reason. That was imposed on everybody by the Muslims who took over. But this egalitarian position comes the incident of the daughters of Zelophehad. Okay. So from this story, we learn that women not only have a responsibility for the future of Torah, they also have a responsibility for the future of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so women are responsible for the future of Torah by teaching it to their children. And they're also responsible for the future of Eretz Israel by having the ability to have a future in it, to have land. Uh, they also fight the military. Don't forget that. In the Israeli military, Israel's military treats them as equals. So when Moshe did not know how to answer the daughters of Zelophehad as to their rightful inheritance, God intervened. No less than God intervened and said that the five sisters, the daughters of Zelophehad, were entitled to receive their rightful portion in the promised land. God then explained the laws of inheritance to Moshe and Bnei Israel, and it includes women. Can you believe this? So, and it's repeated twice. So even the sages in the Mishnah Ketubot on 108b, 108b, teach that inheritance rights were given by God, and that when a father bequeaths property, the daughters must be provided for, even to the exclusion of the sons. Did you know that? Even to the exclusion of the sons, the daughters must be provided for. Why? Because they're the ones responsible to teach the children of the household Torah. The men don't always have time to do that. So this is important. And it is because of the way Adonai wanted us to learn about how women is viewed as God. The man that was stoned, we know about it. We were told about it. But what happens next? It's up to us to say, oh, he was stoned. We don't want to do that. We want to behave ourselves. Okay. But here's where women are being honored by having the responsibility of teaching Torah to the next generation, and their women to the next generation, and their women to. This is an ongoing important thing, and that's why it's twice. The daughters of Zelophehad showed Bnei Israel what it means to have true love for Adonai and Eretz Yisrael, both. The Torah describes a generation of slaves who experienced the sin of the scouts, the rebellions against Moshe by Korach, and the unforgivable antics of Zimri and his public sexual activities with the Midianite woman, Kobe. And to mention only a few examples, because we'd be here forever. You notice they were always men? Who ran to give gold to the golden calf? Who ran? Not the women. They didn't want to give. They thought it was wrong. The men. And who ran to give to the Mishkan, the building of the temple? The women, not the men. So God had not started out in this inheritance issue. Jewish history, if God hadn't done it, Jewish history might have had ended in the wilderness. Why go to Eretz Yisrael? Nobody's going to get. No, it might have ended in the wilderness. It was by giving this to the women as well as the men. There was a reason to have the land. So this is because Bnei Israel doubted that they would ever leave the desert and reap the rewards that were promised to them. They didn't believe it. And this was in the land of milk and honey. We're going there, but the women don't get anything. Why would they leave? So things changed when these five sisters stood up and fought for their rights against all odds. They didn't just go up to Moshe and say, "Hey, Moshe, hey, Moshe, what are we going to do? My father has all this property. He has no sons. You going to let us have it or not?" And they argued. And Moshe said, I don't know. And God said, yes. So these women who had no special place or no special privilege among the people, they were just five women whose father died. That's all. They weren't from any special anything. They proved that they loved and trusted that God will fulfill the promise of letting them into the promised land and having some of it. This love and trust in God not only drove them to fight to win, but their actions also inspired everyone else. So to this day, there continue to be many women who are just as remarkable as the daughters of Tzalafachad. Women who are active and do what it takes to get things done. And to be fair, some of you I'm looking at right now. At least you, your faces or your names. I know who you are. You know what it takes to get things done. You raise tzedakah for many organizations. You learn Torah. You work for the survival of Eretz Yisrael. I know who you are. And in Israel, women have always fought and died along with the men. Why? Not because they had to, they wanted to keep Israel the free homeland of our Jewish people. That's why. Women. Now, women are not second-class citizens according to Judaism. Some of the men may be misogynistic. We all know that, but it's not the religion that's teaching that. So in this context, God wants to treat women as equals to the men, at least as equal. I could never understand how a Jewish man chooses to not shake the hand of a woman or to look her in the eye or to be one that must free a woman from marriage and not do it. I could never understand that. How did that happen? For the same reason, I reject the use of a mechitza or ignoring women when counting a minyan. I always get angry from this. I respect women who choose not to be counted. Yes, there are women who say, I don't want to be counted. That's your right. That's not my right. You can choose not to be counted, but I can't choose not to count you. And there are men who refuse not to be who refuse to be counted. There are many men I met over the years who said, I don't deserve to be counted. I don't live up to the mitzvot the way I should. They're not worthy. They admitted it. That's how they feel. But they are worthy. So are the women worthy, but they don't feel it. And that's okay. That's not my business. That's their business. But just like with men, my inclination is to count any Jew of Israel. Women have always fought and died along with the men, always. So I want to count them. This is not good. So any Jew of proper age, unless they ask not to be counted, I want to count. Again, the reason is because today's Torah reading makes it clear that God wants everyone to be treated as equals. I'm not making this up. Go read it. It's right there, and it's repeated again another time. So it is in this context that I cannot understand why men and women have such a hard time achieving equality when it comes to being called to the Torah. Many synagogues still don't call women to Torah. I'm talking conservative ones. Reform all do, most conservative do, but some don't. Especially when the Torah repeatedly tells us our God wants us to treat them as equals. They have equal access to Torah readings. They must have. God wants everyone, men and women, to teach Torah lador vador from generation to generation. And then you tell me a woman isn't allowed to be called to the Torah? How can you say that? As I have said so many times before, in our Tanakh, we usually find women behaving so much better than men. Men ran to give the golden calf, not the women, as I said. Miriam found and made the water sweet to stop the men from murmuring or complaining all the time. When it was time to build the Mishkan, the women were the first to run and give the golden jewels, not the men. And the list goes on and on and on. The only three things that the Torah reserves for men were their service to the temple as Kohanim and Leviim, and the legal system as a witness. It is true that God gave these three responsibilities solely to men. However, God gave the most important responsibilities to women. Yes, God gave women the ability to give birth and to raise the children in a house filled with love. There can be no mistake about it. Women had the responsibility to raise their children as Jews, and they still do. So, why was the most important rule given to women? It is because, like the daughters of Zelophehad, women were more likely to demonstrate their love for God and to teach God's ways. Adonai knows how the women pass God's love and the love of the Torah, Lador Vador, from generation to generation. God knows it. I hate to say it, but men too often only go through the motions. They go to synagogue, they put on their tefillin, their talit and tefillin, they make all the prayers, they teach all the mitzvot, but they don't follow them themselves. They don't give tzedakah, they don't. Women are committed. Men, you know, I hate to use this example, but I have been told this before so many times. In a bacon and egg sandwich or a bacon and egg breakfast, the chicken is responsible, the pig is committed. Lahavdil. I mean, it's you understand? The women are committed. They'll do anything. They'll do whatever it takes. The men, they go through the motions sometimes. So things changed along the way, but they are slowly changing back. When it comes to religion, things seem to move at a snail's pace. We have all seen egalitarian advances happening, but they are extending to the right very slowly. Women of the Wall is a current example. Like the daughters of Zelophehad, they stand up for the right to pray at the wall. They fight the good fight, and they have faith that God will make sure everyone accepts the truth. When it comes to Judaism, I think my grandfather, Henry Perlman, he should rest in peace, Alei Shalom. My grandfather, who was born in Yerushalayim, Turkey, got it right when he said it all the time, make haste slowly. The key is we must remember the daughters of Zelophehad. Never say never without a wink and a smile, and make sure that whatever the decision, try to make and keep shalom bayit, peace in the house. We must try to do that. But we also must make things fairer and better. That's why my grandfather was right. When it comes to Judaism and everything else for that matter, make haste slowly. Shabbat Shalom and Am Yisroel Chai.